Well, isn't that amazing that we seem to have made the impossible? Can you actually think of these people not just sitting at the same table with us here, right, but getting in one room? It's amazing. It's amazing, isn't it? I would like to give applause to our panelists for it. It's a very special occasion, and believe me, there's been a lot of effort and time and energy that's been put into making this happen. It's not something you do on an ordinary basis, on a daily basis. And thank you very much indeed for having come here, and I'm very pleased to host you here. Okay? If I may kindly suggest, each and every of you, obviously, I mean, the people know you very well indeed, but how would you briefly introduce yourself and highlight your major achievements today? Can I start with Professor Roubini, please?
Well, I'm an economist.
You're a communist?
An economist.
I've heard economist. Don't say that in Great Britain. Okay, the economist.
Brock Pierce, a janitor, a plumber, a carpenter.
Oh, that's very unusual already, isn't it?
So I'm Bobby Lee. I got into Bitcoin in 2011. Previously, co-founded and CEO of BTC China and BTCC. Now I just started my new startup this year called Ballet. We make cryptocurrency physical wallets for the whole world. So
far you're the only one who's doing anything serious here. Is that correct?
Yeah. I know you ruined it for everyone because I wrote the Satoshi white paper. I'm Tom Vase, by the way.
So we have a booth in the back. Please come visit us, Ballet Wallets.
Craig?
So I'm the cause of all this, and I'm an eternal student. And no, I'm sorry, but you didn't write it. And I'm sorry, Tone, you don't even understand it. You have this concept that you can't take cryptocurrency. This whole idea that miners vote to change protocol. The white paper doesn't say that. The last line says that miners enforce the rules. As an economist, you'll know what rules are.
May I suggest we just confine to a very short... That was by way of introducing yourself. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Just let's keep it concise, okay? We'll come to the points. Don't worry. Don't jump the
I've never been called concise. Don't worry.
Okay. Right. Now that the panelists have been introduced, I'm more than happy to ask some more funny questions, really. Now, starting with you, Professor Roubini, what do you think is so wrong about the world economy, and why should we all be so scared of the upcoming recession? I know we're going off at a bit of a tangent here, but presumably we have one of the most authoritative experts in macroeconomics to date, and I'll really be pleased if Nouriel could share his views on this first and foremost. So why is it the scary time for the world economy?
Well, there are a bunch of tail risks in the global economy. The first one is the risk of a trade, currency, technology, and Cold War between US and China. In the last 40 years, there has been a period of global integration, more trade in goods, services, capital, labor, technology, data, information. We could be at the beginning of a process of what I call deglobalization or balkanization of the global economy, fragmentation, decoupling, splinternet, and that's a permanent negative supply shock. Here in the UK, there is a risk of hard Brexit that will lead to a recession, not just in the UK, but also, in my view, in the rest of Europe. There are geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. If there was a war between US and Iran, oil would go above $100 per barrel. That will tip the global economy in a recession like it happened after Yom Kippur War in '73, Iranian Revolution in '79, or the Iraq invasion of Kuwait in 1990. And there is broadly a broader issue. There is I would say, populist backlash against trade, migration, globalization, even technological innovations becoming capital-intensive, skill bias, and labor saving, and we've seen it both in advanced economies and emerging markets. So there are lots of things that are potentially wrong in the global economy, in brief.
Okay. Brock, do you have anything to add to that, or do you think it's all good and well in the world economy, or you're not concerned?
Oh no, I'm very concerned, and I tend to I agree with Nouriel 90% or more of the time. I'm one of the few people in crypto that agrees with most of what he has to say, and clearly, as we look at the global economy, yeah, no, it's the world's rather scary right now. Especially, I mean, China being the primary driver of this. You know, U.S., China, and what can be triggered, and there's 100 things right now that could
go wrong.
Could go wrong, and you know, it's not one thing. And so I'm very, very nervous about the sort of outlook. I'm a big advocate for gold as a result of that. You know, I'm a big advocate of, you know, cryptocurrency, which is still not ready for prime time, right? It's not ready for the average consumer. But you know, I still have great hope that that we'll continue to innovate and make these things easier to use for, call it, the average consumer. But you know, I'm a big fan of hard assets right now. I'm not a fan of stocks, bonds. I mean, I'm very nervous.
If I may go back to 2008, allegedly the year which actually gave birth to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. What were the tools that you were using, Nouriel, that when you were predicting, if I may say so, the financial crisis of 2008? Did it happen on the spur of the moment? I don't think it has. There has been some really deep, profound thinking behind it. So what is it that, how did you manage to figure it out back then?
Well, you know, I spent the last 30 years of my academic career, and also I did work during the Clinton White House, doing policy work, studying phenomena of financial crisis. You know, there are various aspects of them. There are currency crises, there are balance of payment crises, there are sovereign debt crises, there are corporate debt crises, there are banking crises. There can be also household debt crises or any combination of them. And usually they are the result of a build-up of asset and credit bubble that reach then a peak point, and then there is a boom and a bubble that turns into a bust and a crash. So, you know, anybody who has done work either theoretically or empirically or policy about them for the last few decades sees them coming. You know, my good friend Nassim Taleb wrote a book about black swans, and he thinks of crisis being black swan, but in my book about crisis economics, I refer them as being white swans, in which sense he thinks of it as being like an earthquake or a tornado cannot be predicted, while in my view it's more like a hurricane that is a build-up of financial, economic, and policy vulnerability that eventually reach a point of a crisis. So they're more predictable than stuff that is like an earthquake cannot be predicted.
So in other words, predicting world financial crisis is easy peasy for you. Is that correct, Nouriel?
Well, it's never easy to get the timing right, but you see a build-up of vulnerabilities eventually reach what people refer to as a Minsky moment. So those who have been studying them for a long time have the tools to understand why they're coming. They're not just random events. They're not just a distribution that has fat tails and then something happens, like a tornado or an earthquake. It's,
so in other words,
more like a hurricane.
The global economy is now rickety, to say the least.
Well, there have been financial crises, you know, every few years, both in advanced economies and emerging markets.
Well, the title of this panel that I suggested runs as, what are the flaws of the global financial system as we have it today? So it's kind of provocative, really, because there's no way that you would deny, any one of you sitting here, they would deny that there are concerns, and there are growing concerns about that, and no one is going to sit pretty. So, Bobby, if I were to ask you, how would you define what are the most the crucial flaws of the centralized global financial system as we see it today?
Yeah.
And then we'll start perhaps discussing as to how we can possibly try and overcome that by introducing the blockchain technology and perhaps crypto. But what are the major problems as you see today?
To put it simply, the biggest problem today is the money system that we use. Money is used in all parts of society, all over the world, in every economy. And the money we use today is not just in the paper form or the coin form, but also the digital money that circulates in banks and transfers and so on. That money system today is no longer asset-backed. It's no longer asset-based, rather. we're using a debt-based money system that can be inflated and printed and increased without our sort of cooperation. Central banks around the world will unilaterally decide to increase the money supply in all these countries. And they do it in the name of to prevent, you know, the Great Recession, the Great Depression, and so on. But the reality is, by having that control, the central bankers all over the world, they have tremendous power over the people. Today, none of us here are enslaved. I don't see any shackles on any of your hands. But if I tell you that your work and your labor over the last 3 years and 3 months or the last 30 years can be arbitrarily taxed by the government, where they can just take out your earnings through the use of inflation and money printing, then we might as well be working for the government. So that's the problem. The problem is today we're invisibly shackled to the system because our work. So we all go to work, whether it's today, tomorrow, this year, this month. If the wages for that work can be arbitrarily taken away from us without our permission as humans, as citizens of a country, then I think that's a big problem. And that's the problem with today's debt-based money system.
Ted, would you substantiate that argument?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Bobby that the biggest problem is the easy money printing of governments all around the world. And Bitcoin fixes that. But just Bitcoin, not shitcoins, not Ethereum, not other cryptocurrencies, not fake Bitcoin forks, fake Bitcoins coming off of forks.
Like BTC.
Like all the other ones.
That sort of things.
Bitcoin helps to fix that. And so that's what I'm looking forward to. As far as black swans that Nouriel mentioned, yes, they're there. And they come up, and they come up way more often than statistics are telling you that they should come up. But if your investment strategy is to invest in a black swan, I can tell you firsthand, you are going to lose all of your money. You're supposed to invest in things that are trending and then hedge that. And there's lots of financial tools to hedge against black swans. Don't get over leveraged, and don't, assume you're right. So you can't predict the black swans. You can try. You will be wrong on your timing unless you get lucky. And you can't invest for that. But what you can do is opt out of the current financial system through Bitcoin and protect yourself in that way against those black swans.
Craig, if I might kindly add something to that.
So Bitcoin was really developed to look at Minsky's instability hypothesis and asymmetry in information. Bitcoin is a tracing system. One of the aspects, if you read Mann's idea of money, is money needs to be traceable. This is not an aspect that a lot of cypherpunks run around and admit.
Yes.
But money requires traceability. This goes right back to the 17th century, and it includes cash and all the rest. Now, the key aspects of the financial crisis that no one really talks about actually come from information asymmetry. In banks, they have a monopoly on information. They get to own our information, and they capture what we can do. So we can't easily move between banks. We can't share information between organizations. The information asymmetry extends to CDS and large